Thank you for attending to this evening. I'd like to call the regular City Council meeting to order on Tuesday, August 5th. At this time, we'd like to invite Chuck Simonson up from Discover Community Church to offer an invocation, after which we'll be led in a Pledge of Allegiance by Fire Chief Brady. Please stand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Let's go to God in the word of prayer this evening. Father God, as we gather together in this evening hour, we are mindful of the blessings that have come our way in this day. You are God who blesses us as a people. You are God who blesses this nation, our state, and our city. And we only ask, O Lord, that as we come together tonight, we humbly bow before you and ask for your blessing upon this City Council meeting, upon our city of Maricopa. May it be a place that honors you, a place that educates our children, a place that cares for each other, a place that loves and serves you as we lift up your holy name. And so we ask your blessing upon this evening and this night. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Chuck, and also Mr. Leffler. Appreciate it. Move to the roll call, please. Vanessa?
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Chapados? Councilmember Frank?
Here.
Councilwoman Gussie? Here. Councilmember Kimball?
Here.
Vice Mayor Farrell? Here. Mayor Price?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Great. Thank you very much. That takes us into item 3 on the agenda. This is for the proclamation, acknowledgements, and awards. This is a proclamation. We're going to wing this a little bit differently tonight. We don't actually have the proclamation to hand off, but this is August is Drowning Impact Awareness Month, and so I'm going to come down there. Well, we'd like to thank the Maricopa Fire Department, excuse me. Police, we like them too, but we don't want to get things mixed up here. It gets ugly real fast. Fire Department for being here this evening, and they're big supporters of this, and so I know that they were passing out some of the purple ribbons earlier. Whereas Drowning Impact Awareness Month will raise awareness that the number and impact of child drownings in Arizona affects everyone, and whereas the drowning incidents in Arizona take the lives of the equivalent of a classroom of children each year. Whereas a child drowning can happen to any family regardless of education, race, or socioeconomic background, and whereas families can take simple steps to protect their children around water to avoid the tragedy of the unnecessary loss of life, and whereas safety remains a priority for the Arizona families, communities, and government, and the water watchers at Phoenix Children's Hospital. And whereas keeping children healthy and safe is the goal of water watchers at Phoenix Children's Hospital, fire departments and other prevention institutions in Arizona raising awareness will increase understanding and education of effective ways to prevent drowning. Now therefore, I, Christian Price, Mayor of the City of Maricopa, do hereby proclaim August 1st through August 31st as Drowning Impact Awareness Month in the City of Maricopa. Let's keep our children safe. We appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll get you the official proclamation, but we apologize for that.
You know where I work.
I do. Thank you again. We appreciate it. That's the only item on item 3 of the agenda. That moves on to the report from the mayor. Just a couple quick things. Had the opportunity in the past, it's been almost 3 weeks since we've met now, as we had a Tuesday that ended at the end of the month. And so with that extra week, we were able to meet with Senator Flake's office, and we were able to, they were out here for a variety of different things. We were able to take them and show them on a tour of Maricopa, a little bit of the things that we're working on together with the flood solution problems. Obviously, we were working on that from a federal level as well as a local level, and also we were able to show them the need for help with our tight Tiger Grant and the 347 overpass, also to help clear the way with any things that might happen with FHWA. So that was a really good couple of hours spent. You don't often get a chance to do that with the Senator's office and their staff, so that was a good opportunity for Maricopa to shine. We also had the opportunity to attend the Pinal County Government Alliance meetings. We were able to talk about a variety of different water issues. I've posted some of those things to my Facebook, and it's interesting to see the issues that are up and coming when we talk about water. Whether obviously we're not talking about individual companies here, but we're just talking water in general for the area, for the region, for municipalities, and for the state. Obviously, we live in the desert, and as such, things can get tricky here real quick. And so be on the lookout for articles in the papers, things that are talking about water. I think anytime we can find ways to conserve in the desert is a good thing. Also was able to attend a new resident reception. This was an opportunity to meet new residents of the city of Maricopa. This was put on by Councilwoman Chapados on her own dime, and she did so very well. This is the second one she's done, and in that opportunity we were able to tell people a little bit about the city and just give them directions as to where to go and meet some new people. Also had the opportunity to meet with ADOT and representatives from ADOT. This is always important to follow up with what is taking place in the world of our 347 overpass as we continue to watch funding closely and make sure that the bureaucracy doesn't come down, install things and keep things on schedule. So anytime we can talk with the different reps from different areas of the state, that's a positive thing. These particular representatives were from the Tucson office, and many of the things that we have to accomplish here in Maricopa come out of that office. It's amazing in bureaucracies how sometimes the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So it's good to talk with both hands so that you get the information right and straight. And so that's something we're always following up with. And finally, I just wanted to announce that the 4 Our City program was able to partner with Maricopa Police Department this past week, and we were able to do a backpack drive. Through our connections and resources by donations, we were able to meet with Walmart and others and purchase approximately 200-300 backpacks in which we were able to publicize and get people to come to Copper Sky, pick up those backpacks, meet the police department, meet a variety of different people so that it would be a positive interaction with our police force. And so we were able to give away about 200-300 backpacks. And so thank you to the Maricopa Police Department as well as the 4 Our City program. So with that, that's all I have under the report from the mayor at this time, and that will move us on to the report from the city manager. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, a few items to report. I'd like to first announce the filling of 2 positions. Kathleen Haggerty, who is currently the Deputy Human Resources Director for the city of Phoenix, Arizona, will be joining us here in Maricopa on August the 18th. She has more than 18 years of experience in human resources profession and has worked in all of the various areas. I've also filled the Chief Information Officer position. Kerry Gilnack has more than 25 years of experience in information technology services. He's currently the Chief Information Officer for the Ak-Chin community. He's a 10-month resident of the city of Maricopa, and he will also be joining us on August the 18th. I want to publicly thank all of the people that participated in the interview process. I also want to give a special recognition to Kent Hunt, who is chair of the merit board that participated in the Human Resources Director interview process. The city was the recipient for the 3rd year in a row of the GFOA award. Is a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting and has been awarded to the city of Maricopa by the GFOA, being the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, for its comprehensive annual financial report. The certificate of achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. An award of the financial reporting achievement has been awarded to the individual designated by the government as primarily responsible for preparing the award-winning CAFR. And I would like to present the certificate and the award to our Finance Director, Brian Richard. Your Honor, 2 more items to report on. The first item is an agenda item, being item number 9.7. This item was presented to you in the work session. We, at that time, believed that the maximum exposure would be $10,985. We've since learned that the maximum exposure is $13,741 when including Social Security and retirement benefits. Finally, I would like to recognize 2 individuals. The current interim Chief Information Officer for the City of Maricopa, Mr. Gene Martell, who has done an outstanding job and has really advanced the city in technology. And so I would certainly want to commend him and his current staff and the job that they've done up under his leadership. He will certainly do a wonderful job no matter where he ends up. Finally, I would like to recognize our interim Human Resources Director, Rick Clore, who's just done an outstanding job for us, has really shepherded the city through several major recruitment processes. He will be still with us. He's returning to the police department, which I believe is his first love, but I want to recognize his contribution and the outstanding job that he has done. There are no additional items to report.
Thank you, sir. Of course, I spoke out of turn. We do have an additional proclamation and award section, so if we're going to double back to that, I apologize. Councilwoman Gussie, I wanted to turn the time over to you for what you would like to present, and that was my fault. I apologize.
This year we had our Let's Move program. We've been doing this for 4 years now. The Let's Move program, it's an initiative by First Lady Michelle Obama, and it's to keep kids active, especially during the summer times when kids are at home playing on their computers instead of keeping active. And one of the biggest hurdles, and I've been a victim of this, is childhood obesity. It's an issue that we've been encountering, and it's been on the rise. And one of the issues that we have with the Let's Move program is that we want to make sure we get them while they're young and get them with healthy eating habits and keeping active. So this year we were able to keep the program, and thanks for Ansley, I didn't know you were here today, but she was able to coordinate all the locations, which was all held at Copper Sky, and we couldn't do this without the volunteers, and we want to acknowledge all those volunteers that came out and actually had the programming. The great thing about this program is that it was 100% free for the kids, and there was kids out there that really needed this activity to keep going during the summertime. And all our volunteers, thank you very much, and we just wanted to give you a little certificate of appreciation. Now, the program ran for 6 weeks, and one of our returning program coordinators is Mr. Lee Felis. If you wouldn't mind coming up here. If you wouldn't mind staying up here. Also, we had, the first year we had kickball. So I want to invite Mr. Vincent Manfredi and his family, because they were out there too. They were out there playing with us. Now, when I call Mr. Nick Shepard up here, you're going to guess what, is he here? Might not be here today. He helped coordinate our basketball program. Mr. Nick Shepard, he's not here. And this is a new organization that came into town, Copa Grande Rattlers Soccer Club. If you wouldn't mind coming up here. Is Miss Yvonne Palm here? Miss Yvonne, what she did, she coordinated the dance, and Mr. Henry Wade, and there was a lot of people participating in the Let's Move dance, which is an actual dance that was created by Miss Beyonce. So it was really neat to see all those kids dancing out there. She's not here. Miss Amelia Guzman. Oh. And another one of our participants, Mr. Leon Potter, he couldn't be here today because he had another meeting. But thank you very much. This is great. The only way we could do this kind of programming for the kids and be 100% free is through the volunteers that come out and volunteer their time. Thank you.
Thank you again, my apologies. At this time, this will move us to the call to the public. I do have a speaker card first from Rich Vidiello for the first call to the public. But as we do this, I just wanted to let you know, for those that are new, this is your opportunity to speak and address to the council. Anything that's on your mind, just know that the council doesn't typically respond in the call to the public as it's something that's not agendized. And so it doesn't mean we're not listening. We want staff to catch up with you and be able to follow up with any issues that you might have, but we do want to hear from you, so thank you again for coming, and Mr. Rich Vidiello.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Actually, Christian, would you mind stepping down here? Mr. Rose, Chief Stollen, police, all the officers here tonight. Could you guys please step forward? We have a little presentation for you guys tonight. I had coffee with the chief about 2 weeks ago, and we talked about the bike program, and these guys were nice enough to show us all the moves of what these guys got to do, and there's a little shortage of bicycles. So I was able to make some contacts and call some of my friends, and I had them send some bicycles over as a donation to the police department. So Fuji Bicycles donated 2 bicycles, and then in Tempe, one of the bike shops called Dominic's Two Wheeler also donated all the parts on the bike. So instead of waiting around and seeing if we could find the money somewhere, I was a little proactive. No status quo here. It's all about the people. It's about saving money. And guys, I'm proud that we were able to get you these bikes. I've also got a few more bikes on the way, hopefully. I'm working with a few other bike companies. But gentlemen, thank you for your service, and I hope this helps you out. And I'm looking forward to getting you guys even more than this. Thank you.
Very nice. Shiny bike. You know. All right. We'll continue on with the call to the public. Mr. Eric Latch.
Oh, that's a tough act to follow. Just curious, Rich, who gets the bill for the maintenance? Who gets the bill for the maintenance? Hi, my name is Eric Latch. I am director of the For Our City Maricopa program, and I'm here tonight for 2 reasons. One, I want to let everybody know that we're kicking off our 2014 Shop with a Cop fundraising program. Now, for those of you that don't know what the Shop with a Cop program is, it's a program that was brought here 3 years ago where we take disadvantaged youth and we pair them up with a police officer for a shopping excursion at the holiday time. Now, one of the fun things about that is not only does it help the kids, but it helps our officers. It builds that, I don't know if I'd say it builds that bridge, but it fills a gap that these kids may not know what our officers are like, and it also helps our officers understand the kids more. Over the past 3 years, now this will be our third annual one, the first one we did, we raised $3,000 and took 16 kids. Last year we raised $10,719 and took 47 kids. This year, after talking with Mayor Price, and our For Our City team has opened the goals up a little bit. So currently we're looking at taking 60 kids this year. And what we do with that is when they go shopping, they were getting $110. We're upping the ante to $125 this year to try and make that experience a little bit better for them, offer them a little bit more opportunity to do things with it. Our goal is, I'm going to take a page out of Jerry Lewis's book. When he did the MDA telethons, he always said, I just want one more dollar. So that's what we're going for right now. We raised $10,719 last year, so our goal is $10,720. Just want to let everybody know that we will have, starting Monday, we will have flyers in the out here in City Hall, so that anytime you pass through, you can grab one. We will have information online on our For Our City Maricopa page, on our Facebook page, and our website as well. And if anybody has any questions, I do have some basic information sheets with me tonight, so if you need to contact me, all my contact information's on there. Secondly, this is turning into an annual event. We are going to be doing, For Our City is going to be doing a community Thanksgiving dinner. We did one last year and the year before. 2 years ago, we fed roughly 225 people, plus we were able to, as you can see, I'm over the limit, but we fed 225 people 2 years ago. Last year was a smaller event due to city events going on and stuff. This year our goal is to feed anywhere between 350 and 450 people. It is a community Thanksgiving event. Everybody is invited. This is not just for those that can't afford it or anything like that. We want everybody to come out. And yeah, I don't pay attention to the beep at home either, so if anybody has any questions or anything, like I say, I have some basic paperwork, and we will have flyers available within the week. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. You get to state your name.
Yes, my name is Eric Schmidt, and I'm president of Maricopa Meadows HOA. I actually have several board members and residents along with me today. Thank you for allowing me to address the council. Specifically, what I would like to address the council is concerning the ordinance 12-10. It is the parking ordinance. It is something that I was told is currently being rewritten. One of the points that I would like to make is that fines are $57, and you get a $20 discount if you were to pay promptly. So you can create a safety hazard by parking in front of a fire hydrant and get off for $37. You know, my family's worth more than $37. I think that this is an opportunity for the council to actually step up what the actual amount of the ticket would be. I had a nice conversation with Chief Stahl yesterday, and he made it very clear, you know, that as a community, we need to self-regulate and self-patrol. So if we do notice violations, that we call the police department, and they're going to be, they will react to that. We kind of, as a group, would hope that there's maybe a proactive way of handling that. I know that you guys, there's been more tickets issued this year than in past years, but I think there's a long way to go. Just before I left, 12 cars parked on the street, 4 of them are parked backwards. It's the 4 cars that are parked backwards that make the neighborhood look junky. And that's one street. I mean, you have 46,000 residents here. We don't want the community looking kind of beat up and disheveled. We want to actually see the community, you know, raised up to a new level. don't get me wrong, the police department has done an incredible job getting the junk cars off the road that haven't moved, but I think we're at that next point. And I'm just hoping that the council will take, some consideration and actually act on the ordinance when it is represented to you guys. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Scott Bartle. I'm a longtime, not a longtime resident. Been here for 10 years. Moved here in 2004 to start 85239.com, which is now Maricopa.com. And I am running to represent you guys in the state Senate. So I've been a long time involved in the community. Been a member of the Chamber of Commerce since 2003. Served as the chairman of your Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Committee for a couple of years. Served as the president of your school board for a couple of years. Enjoyed a very strong working relationship with the council as well as much of your staff, and look forward to continuing that as your representative at the state capitol. Our campaign's been endorsed by the sheriffs and firefighters, police, Arizona Chamber of Commerce, Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, Tucson Chamber of Commerce, and many others, including Governor Brewer. And stand before you today to ask for your support. If you haven't already voted, would love to earn your vote. More information about my campaign is available on the web at votescottbartle.com, and we also have a Facebook page with the same address. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Scott. Mr. Wade.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I just come to you today and in awe and appreciative of my fellow candidates who are running for City Council. I came before you early in the campaign and asked my fellow candidates that we stay on the issues, that we keep things positive. And I was very impressed during our debate that we had no redresses during that debate. In other words, everyone stuck to the issues, no personal attacks on anyone, and I thought that was incredible. So I guess it was through my leadership that this has taken place, that nobody is challenging anyone. So I think that's wonderful to note. No, in all seriousness, I do appreciate my fellow candidates keeping things focused on the issue, and that's what the voters are looking for. That's what we hope to present to them. And I want to thank them personally and all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you all for your participation. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and move on through the agenda. That ends the call to the public. That takes us to item 7, and it moves us to 7.1 as well as 7.2. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It takes us to the public hearings. On Section 8, we have no public hearings at this time, and that moves us to item 9. I do have a speaker card for Nancy Smith on item 9.4. This is the consent agenda. So, Nancy, if you'd come up and speak to us on this issue, 9.4, before we move to approve consent or pull something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Nancy Smith and live in Rancho El Dorado. As someone who is always concerned about saving taxpayers' taxes, this item in particular was interesting to me, and I'd just like to learn more about what the issue actually is and why it's not covered under warranty versus the city having to transfer money out for $200,000. It seems like it should be a warranty issue. There's probably an explanation. I'd just like to hear more about that and the problem.
Sounds good. Thank you. I guess that would turn that over to our Public Works Director, Mr. Bill Fay.
Through the mayor and members of council, Nancy. Each year there is a vulgar and flagrant intrusion into the divine work of the public works professionals by a group I affectionately know as the bean counters, where the purchase orders that we do contracts with different contractors to build our different facilities, and once the contracts are approved by this body, we open purchase orders, an accounting mechanism. And at some points during the year, we are asked to project when we're going to be done with the projects and either carry money forward to the next fiscal year or close that purchase order, assuming that we're going to finish the project during the year. We have a contract we still have a contract to build this city hall. We built it, and at back in around January, we were asked to project, among other projects, whether we would be done by the end of the fiscal year. We projected we would be done with it. We closed the purchase orders, or we didn't carry forward money for it. Unfortunately, we're not done. There are a number of warranty issues. In fact, there's about a half dozen of them I had a meeting about today. But there are some things we haven't finished, and there's a particular problem related to sediments in the water. I don't know if you've noticed when you go to wash your hands in the bathroom, it comes out like a fire hose and it splashes all over you. That's because we don't have the aerators on there because they keep getting clogged, and there's a dispute whether it has to do with global water, whether it has to do with our contractor, whether it's a design problem, whether it's something we didn't fund adequately in the first place. That's probably the biggest of the issues. There are a number of warranty issues that we are resolving. One of them related to bricks that keep falling off the side of the building, for example. The fountain outside is I think we're going to name that the warranty fountain. But there are things that we unfortunately, we thought we'd be done. We didn't carry money forward. I signed off on, or I gave the go-ahead, yeah, no problem, guys, by bean counters. By the end of the fiscal year, we'll be done, don't worry about it, and now we're not. So the contract is in place. We're not asking for a change order. This is the same scope of work. It's the same contract. It's the same work that has to be done. We just closed the PO, or we didn't carry money forward, and now we need essentially authorization to pay for the contract that we've already signed. Does that answer the question, or did I go way over on that one? You guys
Nancy.
need to do this for me too.
I'll keep that in mind.
So you mentioned a dispute as to what the origination of the problem is between Global Water, the contractor, the city, and we're going to pay for this for $200,000. Will we settle that dispute at some time in the future and possibly recover some of that money?
Well, be clear.
Okay.
That's one of the issues. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't remember off the top of my head what they all are. Some of them are changes that staff have made or things people have requested. When we have a dispute like this, if we determine that it's either notoriously a sub-issue or a design error, we'll stick it back on them and we'll make them pay for discovering the problem. If Global Water's water is coming with the sediments, I've never actually. That's one of the disputes and I've done a lot of dispute work. That's actually my background. That's one I've never dealt with before. My feeling is we're going to be sticking it back on somebody else if the water is coming with sediment. I have a feeling whoever's bringing the sediment will be paying for that. But I don't know yet at this point.
I think my main concern is just that we are looking into that going forward with recovery, if it's possible at all, saving taxpayers money. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. Any other questions or concerns, council, on the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve consent, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the regular agenda items for this evening. Item 10.1, and just for good measure, Henry, if I don't remember, 10.2 we have a speaker card for. But item 10.1, this is the Mayor and City Council to discuss possible take action on appointing 2 citizens to fill the vacancies on the Parks and Recs Library Commission. This is for discussion and action, and I believe the appointments belong to Councilmember Franks and Vice Mayor Farrell. So at either of your pleasure, please.
Yeah, there was a lot of good candidates submitted their applications on this, and after deliberation, I would like to nominate Amy Bratley for one of the positions.
Amy Bratley. Amy, are you here? Don't see her at the moment. That's okay, but that's for the position in the Parks, Recs, and Libraries for one of those positions.
What is the last name, Bradley?
Bratley. Amy Bratley. Okay, thank you. Unless there's an issue, if there's approval on both, we'll move to Vice Mayor Farrell, and then we'll approve them as a slate, if that's okay with the council.
Sure. And I too, along with Councilmember Frank, want to thank all the applicants for applying and encourage anybody out there that wants to get involved in committees to look at our website and see what's open and what's available, and just put your application in the city and wait for the position open. We encourage your involvement, so hopefully you'll all get involved. With that said, Mayor, I'd like to nominate Doreen Tavalt, and she is in the crowd tonight. Doreen, would you please stand up?
Doreen Tavalt, thank you very much. Is there any discussion amongst the applicants, about the applicants that you wish to bring up? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the slate of Amy Bradley and Doreen Tavalt? And we have a motion from Councilmember Brown.
Yes. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much to all the applicants. Again, thank you. And congratulations. At this time, we'll move to item 10.2. I do have a speaker card for Henry. Henry, if you'd come up here, please. This item is for the mayor and council shall discuss possible take action to approve an updated agreement between the City of Maricopa and the Maricopa Economic Development Alliance. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. As you recall, at the last City Council meeting, I asked a question about the $26,000 that we were going to be spending excuse me, to be state members of GPEC, and I was concerned about what that was going to bring to us. So I took the opportunity to meet with GPEC representatives, have a conversation with them, kind of get a feel on what their expectations are of us and what I should expect of them. But I was surprised to see that on this agenda that we're asking to spend $119,500 on META, and I was curious what more are we going to get from them than we're going to get from an international organization that has international outreach as well, with 22% of comparison of the budget to what we would be getting from META. So I just thought that I'd ask that question. And just as a housekeeping note, or a question and a housekeeping note, one of the goals of META was to continue to foster partnership and create the best K-12 system in America. Well, there's no doubt about where I stand on education. I think that made that pretty clear very often. But one of the things that was stated on here is assist USMD and governing board and development and execution of an outreach effort to residential realtors in Maricopa and the East Valley. And I was curious as why we would limit ourselves to just real estate agents in the East Valley and not open it up to the real estate community as a whole that support us.
Thank you. If you'd stick close by, Micah, I believe, is presenting this item, and I know you have many questions, and I think that through his presentation he'll answer many of them, but if not, stick around. So just have a seat there in the front row.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Micah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Micah Miranda, Economic Development Director. The item before you tonight is a expansion upon a normal META contract. As you may recall, at the November 1st strategic planning retreat, staff provided 3 areas of emphasis that we felt was important to help gain traction within Maricopa. One of those was a more robust marketing campaign. Now, this wasn't a marketing campaign to talk about the city or to talk about the business environment. This was a marketing campaign designed to educate the general populace outside of our region, the Maricopa region that is, as to what is going on in Maricopa. You've heard me on numerous occasions talk about the perceptions that still exist in Maricopa that are obviously false. A lot of people still think we're reeling from the housing downturn. Not the case. We are at an all-time low in terms of vacancy. We have a great new city amenity online at Copper Sky. The city is in a really good position. So what we're looking to do with this increased contract through META is to really target the general population. The distinguishing difference with GPEC, and that's, I appreciate you pointing that out, GPEC only targets business development leads. This campaign is not traditionally designed to draw new leads to Maricopa. If that's a byproduct, great. This campaign is to get people up to date on what's going on in Maricopa. We have a great story to tell. we're gaining traction, a lot of projects are moving forward, and we're beginning to draw eyes. We want to continue to draw those eyes as the economic cycle increases and activity advances. We don't want to be left behind in that cycle, which unfortunately we were caught up with in the last time. We want to be out on the edge. So this is an opportunity through META to get these dollars out to a private marketing firm to tout the advantages of Maricopa. To address the second question Mr. Wade had is East Valley Realtors. It's a good question. We've talked to Casa Grande, we talked to East Valley. We talk at a national scale to educate them as part of our realtor tours, which we do in the fall. So obviously it is greater than just East Valley Realtors. We do reach out to Casa Grande as well as additional Pima or Pinal County Realtors. And for those of the audience who aren't familiar with our realtor tour, we go out, we reserve a bus, we invite realtors from all across the region to Maricopa, we tell them about what's going on, and then we take them around and we let them know what amenities are in place, how our schools are performing, why Maricopa is a great place to live, and why our residents find it a great place to live. So any other questions, I'm happy to field them.
Council, questions on this issue? So I think just for clarification, you know, this was a really big topic of discussion at the strategic plan, okay? And the strategic plan back in November of last year, 2013, we talked about how to take the next step, right? As we come out of this recession, as we move forward, and as we say, what is the next viable option to marketing our services, marketing who we are, marketing, I mean, every time I open a publication, there's Glendale, there's Scottsdale, there's, you know, these big guys out there. How are we playing in that realm? And so, you know, although I think the topic of discussion was such that we can't do it by ourselves. We don't have enough money. You know, nor do we want to take our precious resources and just dump them into advertising, right? So how do we find that balance? And if I'm reading the item right, and I've done my research on this, you know, we're talking about a partnership between matching funds between us as well as others that basically are filtered through META. And so those are some of the bigger groups that are out there that can help us achieve this greater campaign than what we could do by ourselves. Is that correct?
Mayor, council members, that is correct. This is a 3-to-1 capital leverage. So it's not just the city dollars. We're actively soliciting our private sector donors to contribute to this campaign. So the contract is structured that for every $1 the private sector raise, we'll raise $3 up to $75,000. And you're right, advertising is expensive. We have precious resources, and that's why we want to use our private sector partners. And those advertisements, those articles that we all read about, those aren't put there free. Those are paid advertisements. They come across the stories, but it's really a pay-to-play model that a lot of the advertising is moving for. Whether or not we do print advertising, I don't know. That will be developed through the advertising business plan. So again, just to confirm what you're saying, yes, it is private sector investment to promote Maricopa.
And just for clarification, again, in using our private donors or, you know, private sponsors, it's also leverage on the fact that again, we're trying to maximize the resources that we have, but there's also ways in which we are going out there and being as resourceful as we possibly can be as well. I mean, we could go all day long. The realtor tours, the fact that we go out to ICSC, the things that we're trying to reach out there that we can do without having to spend a lot of dollars. But this is just to clarify, it's kind of the next step, right? It's the evolution of who we become in trying to get our message out. Because again, we go out and try and find ways. There was a publication you just talked about, the Arizona Builders publication. We have a full-page spread on the things that we're doing through that, and yet, if I'm not mistaken, we didn't pay for that. We went out and solicited, you know, hey, you need to see what's going on in Maricopa. I go out and I go on speaking engagements that do the same thing with the greater Phoenix area. So again, it's not that we're not focusing on all of those things too. This is just kind of a capstone. Am I correct in that?
Mayor, council members, you are 100% right. Okay. This is growth within our advertising spectrum. You know, we launched MAP this past year to leverage our residents as a marketing tool. This is continued upon the momentum we've established.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Farrell?
You know, when we became a city 11 years ago, our priority was jobs. Our priority from day one was to be self-sustainable for all of the citizens of Maricopa. And when we started working with these groups like the GPECs and the care diffs and the economic drivers that are economic locators, we were told that we're not going to get any quality jobs in the city until we, as a city, have a quality of life. And for the last 11 years, that's all these councils have done, is concentrate on that quality of life. And you look at us today, and it's here. Public safety, education, healthcare, recreation, entertainment. We have all of that now. And that's the story Mike is talking about. It's time that we invest this money in our city to market our city, tell that story, and get ready. You know, all the economists are predicting that Pinal County in 2016 is going to start booming again, and it's going to do the same thing it did in 2005. And what timing is that? By doing this marketing package now, getting Maricopa out there, trying to get those economic drivers to come into the city, because we've got that quality of life now, and we need to spread the word.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Councilman Kimball.
Thank you. Micah, you and I had an extensive conversation yesterday about this particular agenda item, and I think you explained it pretty well to me, who the end user, who gets the money, the $75,000 per se, unless there's extra spent in the end. And I think I would ask that you maybe elaborate just a little bit more on that, so that the people in the audience kind of understand what the end thing will be, you know, who's going to get the money and what we're spending it on. Does that make sense?
Mayor, Councilmember Kimball, that's a good point. This isn't money that's just going to end up in MEDA's bank account. That's not what this is intended to do. These dollars will funnel through to advertisers, to social media outlets, to maybe an event organizer to sponsor activities to come into Maricopa. So the end user could be a host of different service providers, advertisers within our region across broad spectrum. So this isn't money that's just ending up in a bank account. It's actually going to be used to promote the quality of life that we have cultivated here in Maricopa.
Thank you, Micah.
Councilwoman Gussie.
What people don't understand is that this is a 501c3. They could reach out where we can't as a city. One of the things that was great when MEDA came out, they produced a couple of workshops. One of them was Common Core. How many people out here don't understand what the Common Core is? There's many parents out there that have no clue what the Common Core is or what it's going to do for our students coming in. They are spreading the word. They're spreading messages that we can't do as a city council. One of the things that we talked about during our retreat was the fact that we are a veteran community. We need to embrace that veteran community and bring all whoever's willing to listen to our message. The only way we're going to get that across is by collaborating with groups like MEDA. And just for the public, some of the key players in the city are on the MEDA board. We're looking at Banner Health, MUSD, Santa Cruz Ranch, Eldorado Holdings, ED3, Great Western Bank, Global Waters, and so forth. This is a much needed organization to get the message out there where we can't. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gussie. That is a good fact, is our private sector is investing back into the community through this marketing campaign. They have something to gain out of a prosperous Maricopa, just like our residents do. So it is a partnership.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Wade?
Just two small points. One of the things that I did observe in my conversations is that we do have one of the best economic development managers, directors in the state here. That was said quite often. So I applaud Micah for the things that he does and the notoriety he's brought to the city. But this is exactly the kind of transparency that I'm looking for as a citizen of Maricopa, is that conversation that you just had. We need that kind of transparency. I appreciate it, so that 5 years down the road, when the question asks, why did we spend $119,000, $119 million, it'd be nice if we could do that. But why did we spend that money? Then we can go back to this conversation and know that we did, in fact, vet it properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Council, any further questions or concerns for Micah?
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This takes us to item 10.3, And before we get to the 10.3, one of the things I wanted to let the council know, and I should have done so earlier, it's been a crazy night, I apologize, is that we are going to move item 10.5 into 10.6's location, and vice versa, with 10.6 into 10.5's location. It's hard for us to have an ordinance roll call if we haven't had the resolution first. So we need to do that, so we'll move those around. Again, that takes us to item 10.3. We're going to discuss and possibly take action on approving the Youth Council Guide with the recommended amendments. Rocky.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Tonight I bring to you amendments to our Youth Council Guide, which governs our Maricopa Youth Council. A little history up to date. We sought input from our last year's 2013-2014 Maricopa Youth Council members. We also brought those recommendations to work session on June 17th to get a directive from the City Council. And from that, we used both those directions and put together some amendments to the guides. I'll briefly go through those for you. First, we've done a change in the selection process. Right now, our proposal is that each mayor and council members would select 2 teens to represent them on the Maricopa Youth Council. We also added one caveat that they could also select an alternative or an alternate member, which would consist of 7 members on top of the 14. This also would allow us to have continuous recruitment throughout the year, where previously we recruited the month of August before school started, and we did that on a yearly basis. This way we could continually do it throughout the year and collect applications. We adjusted the age range. We dropped it down to 13 to 18 years of age. It was previously set at 14. We hope that extra year will get some more kids involved. We've set stringent attendance requirements where members need to be present at 75% of our bi-monthly meetings and also 50% of our youth council sponsored events. Changes after we came to work session is that we will mandate an orientation. Right now, there's been some talk about having a citywide orientation for our boards, committees, and commissions. If that's the case, our youth council will be present at that. Up until now, though, the community service department has handled it, and we will continue to do an orientation. That leads into the next part. We added in there that any code of ethics that the mayor and council adopts, the youth council will have to abide by that, and that is moving forward. Finally, we left this open, rewards and recognition. How we decided to title that is that the Community Services Department will work with the mayor and council on an annual basis at the end of these children's terms to determine the best way to recognize it. It really gives us some options where if we wanted to do a citywide recognition for all of our boards, committees, and commission members, we could do that, or we could do it individually based on service. It leaves a lot of options open that we can just have an ongoing discussion on how we think would be the best way to reward the service that these teens render for the city. With that, I can answer any questions or
council questions. Councilman Gussie.
Was it ever suggested that they have rotating, like certain months, certain people take the leadership, and so that they could get more exposure to that leadership role as far as the youth council?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilwoman Gussie, how we typically nominate our leadership right now is the beginning of the year. We appoint a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary, and we have them fill that role throughout the year. It's a lot of these teens' first time being in a board and running a meeting. And to get somebody, I mean, it takes us a couple meetings just to get that one person up to speed. And once we have that leader, the teens really look to our chairman on a monthly basis. So to kind of change it in each month would be difficult. How we do it, though, is when we have a project or an event, we will put a chairperson for that specific event. So by the time we go through a year, everybody's been able to head up an event or an activity and incorporated other members of the youth council to kind of get them to follow their lead.
Thank you.
Rocky, I have a question as it pertains to that first slide where you talk about the selection process and that the mayor and council will each get to select 2 applicants. I guess I'm just curious. I don't mean to get too much in the weeds here, but I am curious as to how this is supposed to work. I mean, when the BCCs happen, each of us have one appointment, okay? The boards, committees, and commissions. Each of us have one appointment, and when our appointment leaves the board for whatever reason or resigns, then we fill that spot again based on the applications that have either A, been in a pool of people and that have shown interest. The city clerk sends out notifications, hey, are you still interested? And from that pool is who we select. So I do am curious, I guess, in how, if 40 applications come in for the youth council, which is excellent, but we've narrowed that down. We're not taking 40 students anymore. You know, we have a problem in the fact that we can't necessarily talk amongst ourselves offline other than in a public forum to work out and negotiate who's talking to whom. And so I think the worst thing would be to have, now obviously if one person gets, you know, approached by 3 different council members, they're going to say as much, but at the same time, you know, I think we all would like to give a chance on how to spread that out a little bit to give everyone a possibility as best as possible. So can you kind of highlight your thoughts on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I anticipate that I'm going to do the same recruitment process I've been doing for year after year, where I go out to the high schools. I would love to give you as many possible applicants so you have a great pool to pick from. One of the things where we have returning, I had some returning kids today ask me about this new process, and I said, definitely put me down because we have a reference section. So put me down as a reference, and then I anticipate I'll pull everything up, turn them over to the city clerk, and then I can give you guys recommendations about kids that I've served with or approached me or would be good fits for the council. I mean, ultimately it's your choice, but I can help you based off my experience in working with these kids in the past. The other thing is, we do want it to be a little more exclusive. We want you guys to be able to interview them and pick the best representative for you. And a big factor would that be if you were able to call or interview or review the applicants and pick somebody to think this person would be best to represent me. That would develop a mentorship between you and that person. So it would be a lot of work to narrow down exactly who you want to represent you. But I think the process would be worth the reward, where these kids would actually have a bond with each one of you sitting up there, and they could turn to you for advice, and they could do their best to bring back information to you to help the youth. I know we had the presentation during work session about the internship program. I think this is something that could work very hand in hand with that, not so much from the career aspect, but from the city volunteerism leadership aspect. And it might be a little more work for you to dig through these and find the people that you want. And we could do a rating process where maybe you select 5. And that's why we did add the additional alternate member. So we do have a little more wiggle room to have a 3rd person on there to plug in right away if we needed to. But the process is more intensive for you guys. But I think ultimately it would be best for the group.
I think, you know, again, I'm trying to find a happy balance in my mind, because I don't, you know, if 40 kids apply, you know, the first thing going through my mind is, you know, I want to make sure that I can show attention to all 40 of those kids if possible. But, you know, I think I look at 7 of us up here, you know, they're going to get 7 phone calls on for each one of them. But I don't have time to talk to my wife, much less, you know, to interview 40 people. And I worry about that, and I don't want to show any disrespect there to any of them. So, you know, they put themselves out there, you know, they deserve to be, you know, credited as such. But I think there needs to be some sort of a buffering and a recommendation of some sort, so that at least when it's narrowed down to 20, it gives us a little more leeway to say, okay, I can make sure we find the time to do 20 of those, you know, versus again 40 or 50, because there's just no way.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm more than happy to act as an intermediary between you and these teens to help you get through the process. I mean, I can sit down and knock out interviews very quickly and give you recommendations, and maybe have an advisory committee where we do bring forth a select few amount of names to kind of narrow the field down for you. Also, with the continuous recruitment, where we're not doing this every year, the first time will be the toughest time, but after that, hopefully it's just 1 or 2 we're plugging in here on a year after year basis. And it's going to be tough up front, and I can help work through that and make it easier for you guys. But then after that, we'll have that continuity and be able to get through it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right. If there's no other questions, can I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Rocky. Appreciate it. That will take us to item 10.4. Going to hear a presentation from the PFM group on the city's investment program. I want all of you in the audience to stay awake. Stay awake. This is finance. This is exciting stuff.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I have representatives from PFM Group. We've The city has contracted with them since about November of 2012 to manage the city's investment portfolio, and this will be an annual investment program update just to let council and the citizens know what the performance was of the city's investment portfolio over the last year, and a little then some since they've been managing our portfolio. I have Lauren Brandt and also Paulina Wu here that will be presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that acknowledgement of the presentation. There are quite a few graphs in here, so not just words, so hopefully that will, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, so hopefully that will help. And before we get started on the program update, I thought it would be helpful because I have had the pleasure of meeting some of you during the Budget, Finance, and Operations Subcommittee. But for others, and also for the benefit of the public, I thought it'd be helpful to just provide a very brief overview of our firm and also how we support the city. And Public Financial Management, or PFM Asset Management, which is part of the PFM group, is an independent registered investment advisor with the SEC, which is the Securities Exchange Commission. And we were founded over 30 years ago with the sole purpose of providing assistance and helping public agencies like yourself to meet their financial and investment goals. You can see here just a number of the other cities and towns that we work with across Arizona. We currently manage over $2 billion of assets in the state and over $50 billion in assets nationwide. More importantly is how we support the city. We have a dedicated team. Myself, I'm one of the partners of the firm. Paulina Wu, my colleague who's here with me tonight, as well as Bob Cheddar, who is the portfolio manager. And then behind the scenes, we have 200 other people that we can leverage on your behalf. Professionals, with expertise in governmental accounting, which we have utilized over the course of the last 2.5 years, and other members that, again, what we really desire to be is an extension of your staff. We've collaborated very closely with the city to achieve your investment objectives. Those objectives are, let me back up, I apologize. Those objectives are first and foremost safety, protecting the taxpayers' funds so that you have those funds around when you need them. And that brings me to the second objective, which is liquidity, making sure you have the funds there for ongoing operational needs, capital projects, as well as to pay debt service on outstanding bonds. And last but certainly not least is, of course, yield. What are your, helping to generate and increase your budgetary earnings for additional expenditures as well. And we've done that by maintaining a very high-quality, safe portfolio of investments, high-quality fixed income investments. So as a reminder, these are the city's operating funds and can only be invested in high-quality fixed income securities such as treasuries and federal agencies. There are no equities in the portfolio. And the other thing we've done is, on an ongoing basis, is provide some recommendations to the city about changes to its investment policy, as well as continue to have a great oversight on the corporate holdings in the portfolio, which we'll talk about a little bit. So here's a snapshot of the funds that PFM manages on the city's behalf. And this is approximately $70 million. There's additional, these are considered core funds, funds not needed for immediate liquidity. The city manages internally approximately $8 million, or currently $8 million of funds that are used for ongoing operational needs. This is as of June 30th of 2014, so the end of the fiscal year. And what you can see here is that the portfolio is well diversified, as I mentioned previously. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a number of different sectors in the city's portfolio. So again, back to the adage of you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So here shows good diversification. The largest component is U.S. Treasuries, which is considered to be in the marketplace the world's safest investment. You have very high credit quality portfolio, primarily AA and AAA, and your maturity distribution, there are no securities beyond 3 years, with a majority in that 1 to 2 year maturity range. But what I'll point out as well is that all of these securities in the portfolio can be liquidated at any time. So you do have liquidity in that regard as well. I wanted to highlight here, I won't go into gory detail, but on page 5, what this shows since 2012 is the sector and the composition of the portfolio has changed over time. And that's just noted by the stacked bars and the legend on the right-hand side. And why that's the case is because the value in the market changes over time in the fixed income space. And so we want to position the city's portfolio to where there's the most value. So you can see, for example, in the table at the bottom, that we've decreased the amount of treasuries in the portfolio as federal agencies have offered greater value over time. And that comes to a point where we say, okay, well, how are we doing that? How is the composition changing? That's because the portfolio is not static. It's actually very dynamic, and we strive to be proactive in looking for opportunities for the city's portfolio. We always buy the securities with intent to hold to maturity. But over time, as opportunities arise, we may sell an investment prior to its maturity date to capitalize on another sector or another opportunity that we think will add long-term value to the portfolio. It's similar to refinancing your home. You always have the best mortgage rate you can at the time that you buy your home, but over time, rates may fall and you may be able to capture additional savings in the future. We've executed quite a number of trades on the city's behalf over the last 2.5 years. Here's just 2 examples. The first one being where we sold a security back in March that had only a couple of days left, about a month left to maturity. We sold that security to buy a little bit longer maturity, and as you can see in that column on the far right-hand side, it was to pick up additional yield for the city. The second example there is just where we sold out of treasuries to buy a different sector, and that would be a federal home loan note that has a call feature. And I just highlight that one here on the next page just as a way to give you some insight into how we look at and analyze these various sectors on the city's behalf. So here on page 7, it's the same trade that I mentioned on the prior page, where we sold a security, a treasury note that had a maturity of November 2015 and bought a federal home loan bank note that has a call feature to it. And the call feature allows that federal home loan bank to redeem those securities prior to their maturity date. And by doing that, they provide a benefit to the investor, in this case, the city. And that's highlighted at the bottom of the page here in the table, where if that security happens to be called on its call date in 1 year from now, that it has a yield of 0.5% or 0.5%. Well, if you compare that to a comparable security that doesn't have a call feature, you have a yield pickup of almost 0.4%. And if that security does happen to extend to its maturity date, that security has a 1.25% yield, and also relative to a non-callable security has a benefit of over 0.3% to the city. So again, a way we just kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, I apologize, but wanted to give you an example of the analysis that we perform on your behalf. And on page 8, this just shows, again, where we are looking at the ways that we add value to the city's portfolios, looking out for trends. So this is a look at a 3-year treasury yield since February of 2014. We look for trading ranges. We're not speculative, but we look for opportunities where rates or yields are at the higher end of their trading ranges, and then execute securities and purchases on the city's behalf. And what that means is that all results in a positive advantage for the city's portfolio relative to market indices. If you look at the city of Maricopa's portfolio, which is the bottom line, the top line and noted in orange, relative to its benchmark, which is the 0 to 3-year Treasury Index, also compared to the Arizona Local Government Investment Pool, the state pool, you can see that on a gross as well as a net basis, the portfolio continues to generate very competitive earnings and has strong performance. One thing I will note is that going forward, as we're in a changing investment environment, we always want to look out for the city and make sure that you have every option available to you that's within your tolerance for risk and within your comfort range. And so we have posed some investment policy recommendations that we'll continue to work with you through. All of these are, of course, in compliance with Arizona revised statutes. Essentially, it would be to add another sector to the portfolio and also discuss perhaps removing some of the maturity restrictions in the portfolio and in the policy currently. This is noted more in graphical form here on page 11. Essentially, this is a yield curve comparisons, and a yield curve is essentially just a relationship between yield and maturity for various sectors, which are noted and plotted along a curve noted at the top chart there. And the benefit that you can see is the negotiable certificates of deposit in the triangled orange, and then the purple, which are A-rated financial corporate obligations, are two of the areas where we're recommending that the city contemplate allowing those investments in those sectors and maturity ranges into the portfolio. So what do we see going forward into this current fiscal year? With a little bit of levity, a cartoon there in the upper right-hand side, trying to keep, the economics, with a little bit of a light heart. But you can see that's supposed to be new chairwoman Janet Yellen, who's head of the Federal Reserve. And what we anticipate is actually what we've seen here in since the start of the calendar year, which is an increase in interest rates as a result of improving economic conditions nationally as well as statewide, and also the removal of stimulus from the Federal Reserve, which we think will actually be almost complete. The bond purchase stimulus program that they instituted, called Quantitative Easing 3, will actually be tapered down by the end of October. So the trend is, the chart on the left-hand side just shows the 2-year Treasury yield, just a slight upward trend in interest rates, which will be beneficial for the city's investments, as it'll continue to help enhance the earnings on the city's portfolio and continue to fill the coffers. And then the chart on the right-hand side is just a year-over-year look at how interest rates have increased since just this time, or June 30th of last fiscal year. So our objectives and strategies for the city's portfolio looking ahead, again, first and foremost, paramount is safety. Keeping those assets safe in a high-quality, diversified portfolio. As I mentioned, continuing to collaborate with you on the investment policy, looking for additional opportunities as we're heading into a rising interest rate environment, and positioning the portfolio so that we can take advantage of those opportunities through the strategies that I outlined below. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on the city's investment program, or
Thank you. Yeah, would you go back to the investment policy recommendation slide? If I remember correctly, those are the recommendations that we agreed with during the BFO several months ago. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay,
so I guess my question is for legal tonight. We're not changing those tonight, correct? But I guess what I'm asking is the recommendation is here. If it's something that we want, is that something that we're going to be bringing back before council at some point so we can change this? Because this is something, especially in active management, we want to move on this sooner rather than later because you need the flexibility to be able to do things, especially in a rising interest environment. You don't want to miss out on that potential increase, especially when we're talking such small percentages on the safety, which is great, but it generates almost nothing in the form of return. For a portfolio that large, I mean, it's great money, but again, if there was equity exposure, it could be a lot more. But it's understandable. So how do we go about getting to that? How do we go about getting to those recommendations?
Mayor Price, I will work with the city manager and bring back with him, maybe in a work session, of those recommendations. I know we previously in the BFO meeting we did go over some of these recommendations and looking at see when we can in updating the investment policy. Okay. So I will work with City Manager Rose on doing that.
Perfect. Great. I didn't have any additional questions other than that for the most part. Everything else looks dandy. Any other questions? Okay. I told you that was exciting stuff.
I appreciate
Yield
your
curves.
time and your time as
Great.
well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That moves us to item 10.6 instead of 10.5. It's going to become our item 10.5. And this is the resolution. Now, Vanessa, did you need me to read it on the resolution, the whole piece, or on the ordinance? Okay. So this is a resolution, so we're going to item 10.6, just for clarification. It's a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Maricopa as declaring as a public record of a certain document filed with the City Clerk entitled Chapter 7 of Building Regulation of the Maricopa City Code. I'm not going to read the rest of it. I'll do that when we get to the ordinance. So, Bob.
Mayor Price, City Council. This has to do with the updating and revising the building, planning, and engineering fees. It was first presented to you all back on May 6th, and at that point, after we had that discussion, we then advertised on the city webpage for 60 days as required by state law, had a meeting with the development community, and you'd think that was probably the most difficult part of this whole ordeal. We received no comments from the Home Builders Association or the development community. They're in full support. What got to be complex in this issue is trying to locate the fees in our city code. They're in several areas in the city code. It's extremely difficult to track down where all the fees are. And so then I asked the stupid question, why don't we put them all together in one appendix chapter? And so our legal team said, sure, we'll do that. Well, it's an ordeal to do that, to revise those city chapters and those sections and that type of thing. So what we've done is that we put all the fees together in one appendix chapter located in one area of the city code to make it easier for the development community to locate and know what they're going to be assessed in the way of fees. So I think at least the end product's going to be a much better product for the public to understand and see.
Great.
At this point, would you like to go over the fees again that we went over back in May?
Council, we've been over this. Would you like to do it again? Would you like to move? Okay. I think we're ready to move on it. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate it. Can I have a motion to approve, please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. So now that takes us back to item 10.5, which is the actual ordinance. And in order to do this correctly, I need to read the entire header. Vice Mayor, did you have something? I apologize. Okay. Okay. So ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Maricopa, Arizona, adopting Chapter 7 Building Regulation by reference as Section 7-1-1 through 7-1-13 of the City of Maricopa City Code, and repealing Article 7-1 of the Maricopa City Code, and previously adopted fee schedules, and providing for the severability and the effective date thereof. So that takes us again just to the ordinance. This is related to the previous item. We have a motion to approve. Vice Mayor?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you. We'll need a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kimball?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Farrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gussie?
Yes.
Councilmember Frank?
Yes.
Mayor Price?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much. That takes us officially to item 10.7. This is also an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Maricopa, Arizona, revising Ordinance 14-05, which levied separate amounts to be raised for primary and secondary property tax levies upon $100 of the assessed valuation of property subject to taxation within the City of Maricopa for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2015. Discussion and action. Brian.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. On June 17th, the City Council adopted Ordinance 14-5 to levy separate amounts to be raised for primary and secondary taxes. On final review of those ordinances, it was noticed that there was a clerical error in the ordinance itself, so I'm coming back for a revised ordinance. The primary property tax levy is actually being reduced. It was $11 million in the original ordinance. It is being reduced down to the $10,333,000 in this ordinance. Also, the secondary primary tax rate is being reduced. It was at, it was at $2.37 and $2.3716, and it's being reduced to $2.3561. And so both of these do not have a budget impact to it. Revenues are staying the same. There's no revenue increase or decrease there, what council adopted. So with that, is there any questions?
So again, just for clarification, it doesn't affect the budget at all. It was simply a clerical error, and because it's an ordinance, we were making sure that it's crystal clear and right.
Mr. Mayor, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? Can I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? On to the roll call.
Councilwoman Gussie.
Yes.
Councilmember Frank.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Farrell.
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball.
Yes.
Mayor Price.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 10.8, the mayor and city council should hear a presentation on the League of Arizona Cities and Towns 2015 proposed resolutions and advise the mayor as to council's position on the resolutions, and that is for the upcoming league presentation. So, Paul.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're here tonight to just go through this process with council so we can be prepared for this resolution committee meeting. The League Resolution Committee is part of the Arizona League of Cities and Towns structure. It allows member cities to initiate legislation that the League itself will carry forward during the legislative session. So this summer we're looking at possible legislative items, bills to be run in 2015. The Resolution Committee process, cities and towns have submitted resolutions to the League and to be compiled and reviewed. The resolution subcommittee reviews and makes recommendations, and that has taken place. Actually, Mayor Price was invited to sit on that subcommittee and participated in that. The full resolution committee votes to support resolutions, and the resolutions that are supported by the slate of resolutions supported by the committee go forward and are adopted at the League's annual business meeting. All this will take place August 19th and 20th at the Sheraton at the League's annual conference. So this is a process that these resolutions go forward through. The goal of this agenda item is to, while we're working through the League's process, to come back to council and allow council to review where we are now and advise, if necessary, to the mayor as he participates. The mayor will be the member, he's the invitee that will sit on August 19th with the 91 other representatives to discuss and possibly vote on these different resolutions. So the goal for council tonight is I'm going to do a very brief review of the 23 proposed resolutions and talk about the underlying issues. I'm going to go through them very quickly. If there's one that you want more information, I'm prepared to pull out the packet and I can give you some more detail on them. But I just want to touch on the topics that are being discussed. Each one of these topics is potential legislation that the League would sponsor. So the goal of the agenda number 2 is to allow council the opportunity to discuss the merits of each resolution. So if there's one that you think, I want to know more, is this good, is this bad, we can go ahead and allow council to have that back and forth. And then to allow council the opportunity to articulate a position on the resolutions, either individually or as whole. It's we're cutting new ground here, so I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work. And to advise Mayor Price of the council's position prior to voting, as he will be the city's representative at the resolution committee on the 19th. So this is pretty much a feedback loop here. With these resolutions, the subcommittee has given 4 types of recommendations. The subcommittee, which is a group of 15, has taken all these resolutions that some are recommended for adoption as is, some are recommended with amendments, some are kind of not as legislation but considered significant municipal issues, meaning that they're important but they're not quite ready to have a bill run. And then the resolution subcommittee has the option of making a recommendation of not recommended. And I've broken these down. I'm not going to go through all 23 individually. I'm going to group them by the type of recommendation. We're going to start with what recommended for adoption, and I'll call the low intensity issues. And so then if you need more information, have questions, want me to go in detail, just stop me and I will take the time to explain these. If you're happy with what you're hearing, I'll just move through these as briskly as I can. Recommendation 1 is to actually remove the term slum and blight designation when they're doing these special districts and the funding mechanisms that go with that. Right now you have to limit them to an area, and that area is deemed slum and blight. They want to remove that and allow these types of special funding districts to be laid wherever people choose to be. So that's recommendation 1. Property tax incentives for speculative building. Out of the Havasu City, where they're really close to California, they want the ability to have shovel-ready sites and turnkey buildings, and they want to use property tax as an incentive. So this would be legislation that would allow some incentives for people to build at risk. Resolution number 4, expand coverage for improvement districts. This is kind of a in-the-weeds one, but it allows an improvement district to actually pay for the maintenance of the drainage areas. For whatever reason, drainage areas can't be covered, it can't be paid for, the maintenance can't be paid for. So this is a change in that law that would allow more money to be spent in different ways. Resolution 6, you might be familiar with this, restore HERF funding to the FY 2008 levels. HERF has been swept repeatedly. We have a lot of sweeping going on, unsweeping going on in these recommendations, but 6 is, I think everybody's on board with this. All the cities, we talk about this immensely, but it is in the list of recommendations to have the league fight to restore HERF funding. Number 7 is a little bit different take on that. To find funding, to do a study. This would ask the league to push for a study group that would look at how to restore HERF, how to find other alternatives for transportation funding. As cars get more fuel efficient, as we go to gas and natural gas, or to electric and natural gas cars, the highway user taxes we collect per mile are less and less. And we are the poster child for not enough money for transportation here in Maricopa. So, but this move would support a group to study alternatives to transportation funding. More recommendations that were adopted by the subcommittee to restore parks and historical preservation grants. Again, money that has been swept. They took various types of money that were rounded up that weren't distributed. It's kind of complicated, but they had grant funds to put parks back in place, to historical buildings. This has been swept for a long time, and I think we've seen this one before, but they want to restore these so communities can save historic locations and keep their small parks up and running with state funds. Number 14, simplify the annexation processes. There are county islands that it seems like a slam dunk. You should be able to annex those, get them in the city. But our annexation situation is length times width. There's validating the values, the signature requirements. And so some of the cities got together and they want to push to have annexation simplified. And number 20, improve port of entry infrastructure to Mexico. International trade is very important. These ports of entries are overflowing and bound up. The infrastructure is crumbling. There's not enough border patrol agents. There's not enough entry gates. It's just a chance to ask the state to invest in that infrastructure. And then 21, support military installations in Arizona. $400 million a year is pushed into the economy from having the various bases like Luke and others. And so cities are in the forefront for this. They want to support these. So let me stop here and ask any council members if there's any one of these that you would like to hear more about
what additional support would be required as far as military installations? I think cities do a great job.
I think they do. The one issue that came up before was zoning and allowing people to build in the flight path, and building in the flight path kind of crimps their ability to function at certain levels, and so there's a slate of little small changes they can do that the military supports, that cities have always supported. They just want to make sure they're on top of taking care of any issues that might impede the function of these bases. And I can take a quick look and see if there's anything I missed on that one. Let me see. They might list it here. 21. So, yeah. A lot of funding economic development efforts at the state level, attract and expand new military installations, business meetings, and trying to encourage military infrastructure to build around them, mitigate encroachment, and land transfers. So they're trying to just make sure that of all the things that cities have going on, the growth doesn't choke off our military bases, and I think there's room. This is put out by Sierra Vista, Bisbee, Marana, Peoria, and Yuma, and they're supporting this resolution. They are the sponsors. Okay, I'm going to go on then. Okay. Recommendation for adoption, these are the high interest or the more intense ones. Number 2, economic tax increment financing. This is the TIF. Every year we ask for a TIF. TIF is a kind of a rotten word down there. What you do is simply TIF is a way to bank the increase in property tax and use that to help make property more valuable. If you make property more valuable, you get more property tax out of it, and you can take that increase in property tax to fund those improvements. But I think we all know that the legislative has not been supportive. We don't have high hopes for this, but I think just for messaging, every year the cities put this together and say we need an economic TIF bill. We've tried different strategies of calling it other things than TIF. Sometimes renaming things helps, but didn't quite make it across the finish line on that. But we're back again, and I think that we will be pushing for TIFs just because it's the right thing to do. But that's the league's perspective. The city of Maricopa can have their own view on whether it's wise to support TIFs even when they're so despised at the legislature. Recommendation 5, renewable energy and conservation financing districts. This is a request out of Flagstaff to find some ways to add special funding for renewable energy and conservation measures. And this one had mixed support, but it is going forward, and there'll be a discussion, and the mayor will be asked to vote on this, whether it's worthy to incentivize and to have special methods of funding to promote buildings to build green is basically what this one is. 8, the legislation to offer special census alternatives. We're coming up on the mid-decade. When in 2010, when we did our last census, April of 2010, there were a lot of foreclosures, there's a high vacancy rate, and some cities are looking at numbers, including ourselves, that we may have a pretty increased population where we could get a bigger cut or distribution of state shared revenues, which are tax dollars collected by the state and distributed to cities based on population. We live off of those. Those are very important to us, and so we're looking to see if we can prove that we have a higher population, we can get more of those. This issue at the league is a request to run legislation to allow us to use the Department of Economic Security population numbers rather than the census numbers. And what it would allow is an easy way, instead of doing a special census, which is very expensive and time consuming, we did one in 2005, we could just look at the state demographer's prepared numbers and say, this demographer says we've grown this much population, can we use that for our state shared distribution? Legally now, we cannot use the state demographer's numbers. This bill would allow us this one time to use state demographer numbers but some states would win and some states would lose. Or, I'm sorry, some cities would see a benefit and some wouldn't. So there's a heavy discussion and going on with this. So it's something that we're going to have to kind of see where everything goes. I will note that City Manager Rose has asked me to put together some information on kind of a cost-benefit analysis of whether it is financially, it would be a good thing for us to do a special census, and we'll be getting that to you within next month. So Maricopa may do a special, we'll look at it, but gosh, it sure would be nice if we could just take the numbers of the demographer, but it's a prickly issue because it is a zero-sum game. If some people get more money, that means somebody else is getting less. So that's 8, and that's probably 8 is probably going to be the most avidly discussed and intense issue.
Yeah, when I was on the subcommittee and we got to this, I mean we were only 8 into the 20-something that were on there, and this topic took over an hour, and it's very confrontational. It's really sad in some respects because it just depends on what side of the decade you're on. If you were Phoenix 10 years ago or 20 years ago, well then you wanted this because you were the city that was growing like crazy, right? And you wanted this automatic update so you got more state shared. Well, like you said, Paul, what happens is somebody else has to lose when that happens, right? And so it's really from an organization that is supposed to support all the cities to run legislation that's going to hurt half of them at any given time, it's really controversial. And so there is positives to let the state demographers do it. It's certainly cheaper on our side, but the reality is and this is kind of my personal opinion on it, is that I really see it as those cities that are doing the best in that particular time, and Gilbert or us or Levine or Goodyear or whoever else that's growing rapidly, if they do their own special census, they foot the bill for it, but they get the actual numbers because it's truly done by the census instead of our state demographers that are not always 100% correct. No. And furthermore, you kind of take away that ability for anyone to complain from a membership organization because what's happened now is that you've done it on your own. You've paid for it, and so if the numbers have to be revamped accordingly because you've done that and others haven't, then they've kind of subscribed to let the sleeping dog lie, and we or whoever does the special census has subscribed to we feel like we're going to win on this, so that's why we paid buku bucks for it. We can prove there's a rate of return coming to us, and that will happen for the next 4 or 5 years until the next census happens. So really it kind of takes away the argument out of the sails of those that are on the downslope, and so it's one of those things that's a hard point to argue because you want to be supportive of others, and it is only fair because there'll be time when we're not on the upslope, we'll be on the down. But the reality of it is that my personal opinion is to kind of let this in the hands of those who are growing, let them do the special census and not run a bill that's going to hurt half the membership. So kind of my thoughts on it. But any other thoughts, you're welcome to them.
And so we'll be watching this one and like I say, we'll see how this plays out. But if it does happen and they do want to go to the legislation, it doesn't mean it's a slam dunk. It still needs to be passed. It needs to be lobbied for and passed by the state legislature. And you are touching the formula, the distribution of state shared. And a lot of times, the one thing the league is the number 1, number 2, and number 3 priority is protecting state shared. And so whenever you mess with the formula, there's a chance of unintended consequences. So it's an important issue and it's a complex issue. Moving forward, number 15, resolution 15, reasonable limits to stop abuse of the public records request process. This is like the 4th year we've seen this from City of Yuma. City of Yuma put this together with collaboration with Apache Junction. In 2013, there was one individual who made 163 public records requests. That same 2 years before that, he made 155 records requests. And that person will request mounds of data. They'll come through, he'll pick one page and pay the quarter for it. And so this is a touchy issue because our transparency is so important to cities. We are a public entity. We deal with the taxpayers' dollars, and so we should be an open book. But Yuma has a situation where they believe they're being abused, and the taxpayers' dollars is being wasted by staff tracking down for this one person. And so this has made it very close. It didn't quite make it last year, and so we will have that discussion about reasonable limits on public information requests to stop potential abuse. And then number 17, legislation to reestablish majority vote calculations. That is one of a bill that, a fix that comes with a 4-year term. Council members, it's very complicated, but basically, instead of having the number of votes you need to do to qualify for a win be based on a state level election, it keeps it in the local elections are decided by local vote totals, is probably the simplest way to talk about it. It was passed this year. It was actually part of 2126, our bill, but it was what they call session law, and it expires in 2 years. And so we're going to go back and try to make this revised statute that lasts forever, or at least until they change it. But we find that's an important one and going to be topical. Any additional questions or feedback or information on these resolutions? Okay. There are 3 here that are recommended for adoption with amendments. They've swept and they want to a bill to restore GATA, the Great Arizona Development Authority. Infrastructure funds, it's a funding source where you take loose change around the state and use it for small cities to build infrastructure. Small cities, again, have been hurt by these sweeps. Those little sweeps that barely make a dent at the state level make big differences on the sub 10,000 cities, 10,000 population cities in Arizona, and they're pushing for this. 12 and 13 talks about the PSPRS, the Public Safety Personal Retirement System, and there's working on constitutional fixes on this, and so everybody knows that there's a problem. But I did see there are 2 cities that a majority of their payroll, 55 and 65% of their payroll goes to fund the retirement system, more so than to pay the on-staff that is working day to day. It's a technical issue, but it needs to be improved. They need to find a way to make sure that this particular system is solvent. And there's a lot of different angles out there. I think it'll be fixed eventually. But this is the cities in town saying this is important to us. And then 19, address rural doctor issues and residency. They combine the rural doctors and the residency requirements. And so these are, all 3 of these have been combined and amended at one sort. But, I mean, it'd be terrible if we got a hospital and then, we still get doctors that are going to come and work here and live here and practice here. So it has impact to us. Any comments, additional information, questions about these 3? Okay. All right. So what was ranked as significant municipal issues, restoring low-income housing trust fund, again, another victim of the sweeps. There's a pot of money, again, money that has been combined from different segments of the state that has been swept and to balance the budget. They'd like to restore that for low-income housing. And a lot of small cities take advantage of that. And through complications and how this money was dispersed, they didn't want to run a bill, but they still want to advocate for restoration of the Housing Trust Fund. And then ban cell phone use in cars. This is something that some cities brought forward. They think it's a safety issue. It is a safety issue, but I think the resolution subcommittee felt that maybe cities' place in advocating something like this is maybe not where they should be. So they downgraded it to a significant municipal issue. So any comments, questions on these 2? Okay. And then there is one that was not recommended, allowing municipals to partner with state parks on maintenance and operation. The feeling, I think, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I recall, the discussion at the subcommittee was if we start paying half the bill for state parks, pretty soon cities will be paying all the bill for state parks. And so they didn't want to go down that road of subsidizing the state parks with city funds. And so they chose not to recommend this. There are two last ones. These are ones that the league staff has brought forward, and the resolution subcommittee supports these to go forward. Legislation to stop ADOT from requiring cities and towns to indemnify ADOT to obtain access to certain federal funds. It's whenever you talk about indemnification and who's responsible, risk management, it's a highly technical issue, but I think it's something that can benefit all cities, and the subcommittee supported this. Also, streamline the implementation of development impact fees and reduce the complexity and ambiguity. The development impact fees, the moratorium on changing the law is over, and I think the best defense is an offense, so I think we're going to support this, and the league will find ways to make sure that maybe we can make the development impact fees, with the help of the builders, simpler and easier and clear. Any comments, questions about any of these?
Just so you know, I mean, when you look at most of these, they're all, for the most part, this is one organization. This is a group of 91 cities and towns that are fighting for their piece of the pie in the state legislature. And if you noticed, almost every one of them is, please give us our money back. We want this, we want that. And there's 1,000 other organizations out there just like us that want something back that the legislature has swept. So some of these truly are a pipe dream. They come up year after year after year. I've sat on the resolution subcommittee now 3 times, and we'll be a third officially once we get to the meeting. But the reality here is that, you know, some of these just will never make it through the legislative process, and you got to realize those political realities. But, you know, the only thing that you can understand is that if you don't ask, you don't get. So you got at least got to put the ask out there. And so when the subcommittee goes through these, we really do look at them all. This was a 3.5-hour meeting going through these, and lots of discussion. So like I said, it's open to your recommendation to me if you have any differences of opinion or things, but they're pretty hammered out here at this point. So if you have any other thoughts, please let me know.
Just have one question. Were any of these authored, or I saw who authored them? I didn't see City of Maricopa in any of those.
No, we did not author any of these at this time. We have authored them in the past, but not under this one.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And we may have some bills some issues that we run ourselves. Bigger cities tend to run their own bills, and so we're working with the city manager, trying to build a much more comprehensive legislative agenda, which may include, we'll go to council first, recommendations to advocate allowing us to push for some changes.
And there's some real strategy in that. I mean, a lot of the smaller cities have to use this lobbying organization because it's all they can afford, it's all they know how, and so what you find is that they will typically come here with anything and everything, hoping that it'll get through because they have an organization they subscribe to as a member. But like Paul just said, I mean, if you can afford to do it on your own, if you have the connections, the network, you're close enough to the Capitol that you can be there on a regular basis, then the reality is sometimes you have better chances of, you know, authoring those yourself by running them yourself rather than having to go through the league, because then you're subject to 91 members that may disagree with you. So, that's right.
And Mayor, I would add that if after this presentation, if any members of the council have any ideas or thoughts, I know you have ongoing meetings with the city manager. Please share them, and if there's something that you think that a change in legislative statute that could make life better in Maricopa, make us more independent, make us more productive, we're all ears.
So this isn't an action item per se, but it is for advisement. Anyone have anything different that they'd like to advise other than what they've seen thus far? If not, then, you know, with a little bit of, you know, council latitude, when we get into this meeting of 91 cities and towns and mayors and council members, it'll give me the flexibility to act on our behalf based on this discussion tonight. And so, you know, there might be one or two that pop up that need a last-minute adjustment, but for the most part, it gives me the ability to act on your behalf as you see fit. So, any other thoughts or questions on this? If not, we can move beyond.
And I would invite all of council. It's usually a pretty big table with a lot of people talking, but there's chairs inside. If you 1:30 on August 19th at the Sheraton, if you're at the conference and you want to sit in and see the one time when the league gets every member at a table with a microphone debating stuff, it's actually fairly impressive. It's kind of fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes item 10.8. In order to move to make an appropriate decision on item 10.9, we need to go into e-session. We've not had a chance to do so based on the length of our work session. So if I can have a motion to move to e-session before attending item 10.9, that would be great.
Mayor, moved. Before we do that, I'm going to recuse myself from this agenda item.
Thank you very much, Councilman Gussie. So we have a motion. Is there a second? And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll be on hold for a little while. Sorry, folks. Thank you. I'd like to return to our regular meeting. Thanks to all the diehards who stuck around for our e-session. We're on item 10.9. The City Council shall discuss and possibly take action on selecting a method by which to fill the vacancy of the City Magistrate. You know, Council, I think that the best way to do this would be to, we have by code the ability to put somebody in an interim measure for the next 6 months. And I think that I would accept a motion if we wanted to move down that realm of doing a 6-month interim, perhaps accepting, in fact, I'll make the motion if that's all right. I'm already halfway there. But go ahead and basically say that for the next 30 days, we will have applications open, or excuse, I don't know if it's exactly 30 days, up until noon on September 2nd. So if you'd like to be a potential interim candidate here. However, I think that it's important that we recognize that it is election season, and as such, we want to make sure that if decisions aren't rendered by Pinal County up to that point, then if you're still an active candidate, we don't want to accept an application from that active candidate. But we won't know that. So if you are an active candidate and you want to participate in that, you can hedge your bet by putting in an application, and we'll go up until September 2nd on that night.
I have a quick question before we continue real quick for legal. Because I don't think we discussed this. What about the qualifications of the position? Does that have to be in this motion, or will it be in the application?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Farrell, the qualifications are set forth in the city code, and it talks about in section 512, subpart B, in the event of a vacancy in the office of presiding judge, the council may appoint an interim presiding judge who may either be a current municipal judge or a judge from another court. The selection of the interim presiding judge is not required to comply with the procedures set forth in section 533. The interim presiding judge shall serve until a presiding judge is appointed in accordance with this section. In no event shall the interim presiding judge serve in that position more than 6 months. So it sets, you don't need it in the code sets forth the qualifications.
Will that code be in the application?
Sure, we can put it out in the application, that section.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Honorable Mayor and Vice Mayor Pryor, also as a part of the advertisement that is done for this position, the qualifications will be included in that.
Sure.
Okay.
So I just don't want to get 100 applications and people didn't realize that there were qualifications for this position.
Surely. So that's the motion, and if there's a second?
Second.
A motion, a second. Is there any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. That concludes our lengthy council meeting for this evening. Thank you very much for being here, and can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
No, or motion to go into executive session, Mayor?
Move to go to session, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, we're going back. I apologize. It's getting longer for some of us. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. See you in a couple of weeks.